Hey guys, this is part two of our Sunday school lesson on the Bible. And so last week we hit on the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And we that the Old Testament is the Hebrew scripture. The Old Testament tells the story of the people of Israel. The Old Testament was around during the time of Jesus. It was written down by scribes who just told the story of how God revealed himself to the people of Israel. And the New Testament talks about the story of Jesus, the life, the death, the resurrection of Jesus. And you have letters and you have accounts of the church forming and people beginning to follow Jesus and this Jesus movement, right? Last week we talked about Genesis through Deuteronomy. It's called the Torah. It really is the beginning of the world, the creation, and then the fall of man, and God saying that he was going to redeem humanity through this man Abraham. I told you that Abraham's descendants ended up in Egypt as slaves, and God delivered them. And he delivered about 1 million. There were about 1 million people in Egypt, and God delivered them. But these people, they wandered around the desert for a long time, just grumbling, complaining about God, even though God delivered them. And God said, I'm going to take these unfaithful grumblers and I'm going to redeem the world with them. That's how much grace God has with humanity. So we've ended in Deuteronomy where they get right up to the edge of the promised land, okay? Joshua, through the end of the Old Testament, is the story of them entering into the promised land, organizing themselves as a nation, and having successes where they follow God and failures where they do not follow God. And in the middle of all that is some pieces of literature called the wisdom literature, and you also get the book of Psalms. So let me highlight a few of those things real quick. So Joshua, in the book of Joshua, they enter into the what's called the promised land. In the book of Judges, there's some leaders that come to rise up and lead these people while they're in the promised land. Judges are basically like, you might think of them like generals or just political leaders. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. You get into some literature where some like 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles. This is where the nation of Israel asked for a king, and God assigned a king. The first king was not good, Saul. The second king was great, David. And the third king was okay, Solomon. David and Solomon they basically take a whole bunch of land. Like they start reigning and expanding the nation of Israel. And David's such a good king, and Solomon's so wise, and they build a temple to declare that God is the God of the people of Israel. But man, after Solomon, things just went downhill. The nation actually split after Solomon's death. You had the northern kingdom that was called Israel, the southern kingdom that was called Judah. Towards the end of the Old Testament, there's a bunch of writings called the prophets, books like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel and even Daniel. And all of these books are about how God revealed himself to people called the prophets to go tell the kings that if they don't act right, that if they don't do the right things, then God was going to send in other kingdoms to basically take them over, and God was going to let them go through some hard times in order to eventually bring them back to him. So some of those prophets kind of wrote these, revealed this revelation to kings while they were still a nation, you know. So people like Isaiah and Ezekiel, they would say, hey, you know, you need to act right or this is going to happen. And sure enough, the nation of Israel was very unfaithful. The kingdom of Assyria came in and attacked the northern kingdom of Israel and took them away. A couple hundred years later, the kingdom of Babylon came in and attacked the southern kingdom, Judah, and took them away. And so you see like this rise and fall, right? God did allow the people of Israel to come back to their land and to inhabit the land of the promised land one more time. But it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same, okay? They never did really follow God the way God wanted them to follow him. But he was going to continue to be faithful to the people, even though the people were not faithful to him. And so what you see is that the Old Testament ends and the New Testament begins with Jesus coming through the Israelites, coming through the tribe of Judah, actually, the nation of Judah, the line of David, to fix it all, to redeem it all, right? And it's just a neat story. Right in the middle of the Old Testament, you have these books: Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, the book of Job, even the book of Psalms. And it's this beautiful literature. Proverbs has such great wisdom in it. Ecclesiastes is a really neat view of wisdom. In Job, Job is kind of a tough one to read, but it really gets down to the meaning of wisdom and trusting and fearing God. And so what's neat about the whole Old Testament is it's just this library of books. It's just this history of like thousands and thousands of years captured in a number of books, and that highlights the way we should live to God and should be faithful to God, but that we're sometimes not faithful to God, okay? So, but then we get to the New Testament and Jesus fixes it all. But just wanted to highlight the Old Testament for you. I hope you have a great Sunday. We'll pick it up next week.